We are now learning Mishna is Chagiga, Perek Gimel, chapter 3. We're in the middle of Mishnah Aleph, middle of Mishnah 1, but we'll just start reading from the beginning of the Mishnah. We'll read quickly through what we did yesterday, and then continue on. Chaim about Kaidish about Truma. There's a stringency by those who eat sacrifice meat over those who eat Truma. Shemat bilin kalim b'seich kalim la Truma v'aloy la Kaidish. We can immerse vessels inside other vessels to purify them for the usage of Truma, but you can't do that if you want to use the vessels for Kodesh, for carbon meat. Next. Acharayim v'teicha beis hatzvita b'truma. When it comes to the bottom, the inside, the finger grip of a utensil regarding Truma, we consider them separate vessels. But not when it comes to sacrifice meat. We elaborated on that yesterday. I just want to read through it to get to where we're now going to what we didn't learn yesterday. And that's what we're up to right now. Okay. So the Mishnah reads like this. Hanoise es hamidras. If you are carrying a midras. Now, a midras, as we learned before, is something that a person who is either tameh as a zav, a zava, a nida, a woman who just gave birth. All these are people who are impure from an emission from their body. So when they put their support on something, they make it what's called a medras. A medras means it's something that they supported themselves on, and it has the status of avatum. It has the status of an original source of impurity. It can make other people impure. It can make vessels impure. Now, a very common example of a medras is a shoe, right? You support yourself. You put your weight down on your shoe. Oh. So your shoe would be, if you didn't realize that, a shoe would be a medras. So if a zab's shoe is a medras. So the Mishnah says like this: Hanoisi is a medras. Somebody carrying a medras, for example, a shoe. Noisa is a truma. He can also be carrying at the same time truma. Now, this needs explanation because, a medras is something that can make other things impure. And truma, you don't want to make it impure. So what's the case here exactly? So the case here is the following. The case here is that you are carrying a medras, a shoe, and you're also carrying truma, but the truma is being carried, listen to this, in an earthenware barrel at the same time. Okay, you've got the truma in an earthenware barrel. It's very important to know it's earthenware. And so you got the earthenware barrel, you're carrying it through a barrel where the truma is, and you're carrying the shoe at the same time. Now, do you have to be concerned that this shoe that's a medras is going to make the truma inside the barrel impure? That's the question. Now, how would it make it impure? So the most simple way of making it impure would be if it touches the barrel on the outside, it makes the barrel impure, right? And the barrel touches the truma, it makes the truma impure. That would be the simplest way of explaining it, but it's not so. Because when you talk about an earthenware barrel, that's not what happens. The Torah says by an earthenware barrel, anything that touches it from the outside will not make the barrel tameh. It will have no effect whatsoever, even on the barrel itself. Forget about what's inside. Even the barrel itself is unaffected. A earthenware barrel will only receive impurity tuma from the inside. The source of impurity has to go on the inside of it. And then once it goes into the inside, the airspace, even without touching the walls, once it goes up and it goes into the airspace of the earthenware barrel, that the earthenware barrel airspace becomes impure, and anything in that airspace also becomes impure. So if this medras were to get into the barrel, then it would make the truma impure even if it doesn't touch it. Now the question is, you've got the truma in the barrel, you got the shoe in your other hand, you got to be concerned that the shoe or the shoelace is going to get inside the barrel? Says the Mishnah, if you're carrying truma in the barrel, you don't got to be concerned. You don't got to be concerned. Because from the outside, nothing's going to happen. You don't got to be concerned just because you're carrying it, that's going to get on the inside. However, that's in regarding to truma. Avaloi es ha-kodesh. But not if you're talking about kodesh. If the case was you had the shoe that was a medras and at the same time you're carrying the earthenware barrel with sacrifice meat inside of it, that you can't do. Why can't you do that? Because it's a rabbinic decree based on a story. Okay, once upon a time, there was a man who was a Zav, and he was carrying a barrel with carbon meat in it, and his shoe strap broke. So he picked up the shoe strap, and as he picked it up, the shoe strap landed up going inside the airspace of the barrel and made the sacrificed meat impure. Because the shoe strap is part of the shoe, it was the medras, and it now went inside the barrel, so it messed it up. Now that's a story that happened. There was a one-time occurrence. But those kinds of things were enough to the rabbis to say, all right, from now on, no more. No, from now on, you cannot go ahead and carry a medras and sacrifice meat at the same time, even though the sacrifice meat is in an earthenware barrel. You can't do it. That story happened, so we say, okay, we're not letting this happen anymore. Now, what's interesting is that you may say, well, if that story happened, right, and it happened to have, let's say the story would have been that inside the barrel there was truma, would have messed up the truma too. So if you're concerned about such a thing, why are you only concerned about it for sacrificed meat and not for truma? I mean, the story could repeat itself in a case where there's truma in the barrel too. So why doesn't it apply to truma? So the way they explain it here is, since the decree against carrying a medras together with tar items was prompted by the incident recorded above, it is limited to the circumstances of the original incident, namely, where the food being carried was kodesh and not truma. If you're worried about such things happening again, it doesn't make a difference what's in the barrel. But being that this decree was based on the story, the sages only made that decree based on the circumstances of the story and not more. And therefore, the only thing that you may not carry together is the medras and the sacrifice meat that's in the earthenware barrel. But if it's less than that, it's a truma, then it's not. Then it's not a problem. Next, bigle teruma medras l'kodesh. The clothing of those who eat truma are considered a medras for those who are eating sacrifice meat. This is really a repeat. We had this before. The Mishna is repeating it again as it's going through these differences between truma and sacrifice meat. So just to repeat what we had before here, this is talking about where we say that the beged, the garment we said the garments of people who eat something of a lesser level of holiness, their garments are considered a medras for people who have to keep a higher standard of holiness. So you have a person who's a Kohen. He eats truma. He's going to be careful to make sure that things in his house stay pure and not impure so that his truma doesn't get messed up. Okay? The thing is, though, that being that what he's being careful for is the level of truma, he's not being careful for the level of sacrifice meat, which is a higher level. That's not what he's watching it for. So the Chachamim said that although this person is eating truma, and you can assume he's being careful, but things are not on the same level as one being careful with sacrifice meat, then regarding the person who wants to eat sacrifice meat, the garment of this person eating truma is like the garment of an am haaretz, garment of a person who isn't careful about impurity and purity at all in the sense of what he eats. And the same way there we say that his garment, we have to consider it a medras, because maybe his wife who was an Ida sat on the garment and she made it a medras. So too, regarding the person who wants to eat a carbon, the garment of the person who's eating truma is considered not being watched enough, and therefore his garments is considered rabbinically a medras. And if the person wants to eat a carbon were to touch that garment, then he couldn't eat the carbon. If his vessels would touch that garment, he couldn't use his vessels for the carbon. That's what it means here, that the garments of those who eat truma are a medras for those who eat carbon meat. Okay, we're going to stop here and continue tomorrow with this Mishnah. That will do the Chofetz Chaim. Okay, here we go. V'da. Let's say you spoke lashon hara, and it didn't have any negative effect on the person. It caused no damage whatsoever. It had no effect on the person you spoke about. You went ahead and you said this piece of lashon in front of other people about so and so, and they say we don't believe you. It's not true. Not true. They rejected it. All right. So I didn't cause them any problems or any potential problems because no one accepts it. It's still, you spoke lashon hara. You may not have to ask that person for forgiveness in any way because you didn't hurt him. But you spoke lashon hara, which the Torah says you're not allowed to do. And therefore you need atonement for that. The Yoysim is even more. Let's say you know ahead of time that what you're going to say is going to cause this person any problem. You're going to say something bad about him. No one's going to accept it anyway. You know it. Nonetheless, you're not allowed to speak derogatorily about another person. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay.